Today we're going to be talking about the best raid Pokemon for each type. There are 18 types. I have around 18 Pokemon, and this is of course opinionated, so if you disagree with me, leave comments in the comment section below, please. There are a few I might have overlapping, and I'll explain my reasoning why. So we'll start with normal. I don't have a normal Pokemon I use in a raid. I don't know of anybody that has a normal Pokemon that they use in a raid, unless it's Farigiraf, which also is Psychic. So that type I'm throwing right out the window. And we're going to go to Ceruledge for fire. Ceruledge it's one of the coolest Pokemon in the game. It's Fire Ghost and Swords Dance. Swords Dance, Bitter Blades. It's incredible. It can recover health. You don't even have to put a Shell on it. You can put something else on it, but definitely going to go with Ceruledge for fire. Water. I'm going to go with Azumarill. Now, I have two Azumarils, one for fairy and one for water, and because it knows it can learn Belly Drum plus Liquidation plus Raid Dance, I think this is hands down the best water Pokemon in the game. If you have somebody else, please let me know. Next, let's look at the electric type, and while there are plenty of Pokemon to choose from, including Miraidon and Iron Hands, I'm going to have to pick Bellibolt here, because it's a Pokemon that you get so early in the game, and it's so useful. I made a video on how to use it in the Decidueye raid that makes it basically a cakewalk, and because of Parabolic Charge and Acid Spray, it's an absolutely amazing Pokemon. If it doesn't have Electromorphosis, it's not a very good Pokemon, so make sure it has that ability. Parabolic Charge being able to allow itself to heal, and Acid Spray being an amazing stat-lowering move that also counts as an attack, so you get closer towards your Terastallization. It's also one of my favorite Pokemon in this generation, actually. Let's go to Grass. Let's go to Grass next, and there are a few options here. There's Arboliva, who actually, out of all the raid Pokemon I have built here, I have this whole box built for raids. I don't have Arboliva built, because my favorite grass-type Pokemon to use is actually Contrary Lurantis. So yes, this is a Pokemon you'll have to get post-game, because you will need either to find it in a raid or to have an ability patch. But we use this during the Pikachu raid, and its ability to use Leaf Storm and constantly boost its special attack while using that, in my opinion, is far and above, makes it one of the best grass Pokemon in the game for raids. Now, honestly, Iron Leaves is kind of fun to use. It's a grass-type Pokemon that can learn Swords Dance, and I've had some fun doing this, especially if you set up Psychic Terrain and stuff like that, but I don't use it enough to consider it probably the top grass Pokemon in the game. It's just a pretty fun one to use. Let's look at the Ice-type next, and in my opinion, there's only really one good Ice-type Pokemon to use in raids, and that is Baxcalibur. Baxcalibur I use on my competitive teams, and he's really fun to use, but he knows Swords Dance, and he can learn Icicle Crash. And that's basically the best ice move in the game, unless you use Icicle Spear, which you can do that and give him the loaded dice. I really didn't have a lot of Ice-type Pokemon to pick from. If you guys had any other Ice-type Pokemon you use, please leave a comment in the comment section below, but Baxcalibur is my one for... a lot of these types... I'll mention this when I get to Psychic. A lot of these types you can use other types for. So, an Ice-type Pokemon, you can use other types to counter those Pokemon. So, it's not a Pokemon I use a lot. I'm saying Pokemon a lot, but yes, but he is who I would use if I needed an Ice-type. Next is the best raid Pokemon in the game. Iron Hands, that's the fighting type. Fighting type Iron Hands, Belly Drum, Drain Punch. After 3 Drain Punches, you can Terastallize and use a close combat, and usually that will destroy the raid Pokemon. Belly Drum, 3 Drain Punches, close combat. After you Terastallize, it's done. Best raid Pokemon in the game, because he is also the electric type if you want to use him in electric raids as well. Of course, I have an Iron Hands that's an electric Terra type and a fighting Terra type, but I've been using Bellibolt more for the electric Terra type. So best raid Pokemon in the game, hands down, is Iron Hands, because if you're facing a raid you can't beat with a type advantage, you can still bring in Iron Hands with booster energy and just use Drain Punch the whole time, and eventually you'll win the raid. Next, let's talk about the poison type, and the Poison-type Pokemon I use the most is probably Gengar. This Pokemon can learn Acid Spray and Nasty Plot, making it my favorite combination of moves in the game when you can lower its self-defense and boost your own special attack. Nasty Plot, that's a whole nother video. Koraidon can learn Swords Dance. why can't Miraidon learn Nasty Plot? There's so many special attacking Pokemon I wish could learn Nasty Plot, but they don't because it's a dark type and Swords Dance is a normal type. That's a whole different video. So I use Gengar when I do use a poison type, but I will definitely not hold it against you if you use Clodsire. I have a Clodsire in one of my other boxes here. He's fun to use as well. Ground, you can throw Clodsire in there, but when I use a ground Pokemon, I'm definitely using Garchomp. I don't know who wouldn't use Garchomp because it Swords Dance, Earthquake, and the Dragon type gives it a lot of resistances as well. Don't take it in against an Ice type, but it has some pretty strong resistances, and of course, you want to make it Terra-type ground. This Pokemon is busted, in my opinion, along with Ceruledge and Iron Hands. It's probably one of the best raid Pokemon in the game. Flying type, I'm going to be honest, out of all the raid Pokemon that I build and have a lot of fun doing it, the Pokemon I probably use the most, if I want to use flying moves, is Charizard. But probably the best flying type Pokemon would be Corviknight. Even though when you use Corviknight, it's very highly unlikely that you're going to be using flying moves. He's more of a status Pokemon when you give it Mirror Armor. In fact, you see mine isn't even built. Drill Peck and Brave Bird, but it's, again, this is more of a status Pokemon. It can Screech, it can use fake tears and stuff like that. So if you're going to use a flying Pokemon, I would probably suggest Corviknight. It's not a type that I use very much. Now, with the Psychic type, I'm kind of biased because I love my shiny Espeon. And Magic Bounce is one of my favorite abilities. It bounces back, reflects status moves. Combine Psychic, I mean, it's a good Pokemon, but it doesn't get the crown as the best Psychic Pokemon to use in the game. That goes to Espathra. Even though the stats aren't nearly as good, Lumina Crash alone makes this Pokemon amazing and an amazing support Pokemon to use against types that are weak to Psychic because of Lumina Crash. I mean, it harshly lowers, or sharply lowers, I can't remember what it is, the special defense, and it does, it's 80-100 in damage. It does 80 damage. So it's just an amazing move. Again, you want it to have Opportunist because whenever the opposing Pokemon boosts its stats, it will boost the same stats here. So you bring it into a raid where they're using, you know, Calm Mind. Let's see, Slowbro or Slowking comes to mind when that happens a lot. But if you're going to use a Psychic type, like I said, I'm akin to using Espeon. But Espathra is probably the best Psychic type Pokemon in the game. Next, we have the Bug type. I do not have a Bug type on this list. If there's a Bug Pokemon that you use specifically to use because it's a Bug type Pokemon, let me know. If it's with another type and you're using that other type as the main advantage, that's fine. But I do not have a Bug type Pokemon on this list. I wish Vikavolt was in the game, but sadly, it's going to be in the DLC though. And looking at my list here, Rock. Rock is another type that I actually don't use very often, but if I had to choose a Rock type Pokemon, it would definitely be Iron Thorns. Here's the deal with raids. You want to be able to boost your own attack and lower the opponent's attack as much as possible. That's pretty self-explanatory. You guys are probably thinking I'm an idiot just saying that, but that's what it is. This is a Rock Pokemon that has a decent, pretty good stats, I should say. It is a Paradox Pokemon that can learn Swords Dance, Rock Slide, and Stone Edge. So if you're going to use a Rock Pokemon, if you're using it against an Ice type or certain other types, I would definitely go with Iron Thorns. Next, we'll look at the Ghost type, and people can make an argument for Golden Goat. It's an amazing Pokemon. I'm not including it as the Ghost type here, even though most people probably use it as one, because mine has a Steel Terra type. For the actual Ghost type that I'm going to be Terra typing to, I gotta choose Annihilate. It's the only Pokemon I have that can actually Terra type Ghost. But Rage Fist, Bulk Up. Again, I wish this Pokemon knew Swords Dance, but that would probably break the game a little too much. So you can use Bulk Up, and again, with Rage Fist, the more times you get hit, the more Rage Fist is going to build up its damage, and you can. It makes it a lot of fun because even if Annihilate dies in a raid, the buildup of Rage Fist, it still adds up. So Rage Fist ends up doing a lot of damage as the battle goes on. It's the only Pokemon I have that has Ghost Terra type. Now for the Dragon type. Okay, there are a lot of Dragon Pokemon that you can choose from. I'm strictly going to say it's either Legendary Pokemon, either Koraidon or Miraidon. Miraidon I have as my ride mount right now, so I don't have it in here, but I'd probably say Koraidon or Miraidon as the dragon type. If you want to count somebody else, this is probably the one that's most open to discussion. I mean, if you want to use Roaring Moon or other Pokemon like that, I think for simplicity's sake, even though I don't have their Terra-type dragon, I think the 2 legendaries would probably be the best dragon types in the game. Dark type is next, and in my opinion, I'm actually going to give this a tie between 2 Pokemon for the Dark type. It's going to be between Kingambit and Chi-Yu. My Kingambit is Steel Terra type. I might move this back to Dark because I have Golden Go as the Steel Terra type, and they're kind of interchangeable. I usually go with who has a higher special defense or physical defense. But Kingambit, Swords Dance, Kowtow, Cleave, and of course Taunt is important for certain Pokemon if they're going to keep boosting, or more importantly, if they want to yawn you. How many raids do you use where they just flat out yawn you every other turn? So then you use Golden Go because it has good as gold, but you still end up... anyways, when it comes to the Dark type, I would say Kingambit and Chi-Yu. Now, my Chi-Yu is actually has a Dark Terra type. It can learn Taunt as well, but Nasty Plot, Dark Pulse. Beads of Ruin lowers the special defense of all Pokemon except itself, so when you go into the raid, it's automatically going to lower the raid's Pokemon's special defense, which basically is using a stat-lowering move before you even start to battle. And I use Chi-Lu a lot because it's a type combination that is kind of resilient against other types, so I would definitely say it's between Kingambit and Chi-Yu as the best Dark-type Pokemons in the game. And the Steel type, we're going to go over this finally. It's Golden Go. Nasty Plot, Make It Rain. Metal Sound as well. Sometimes I try to use 3 Nasty Plots, get a Metal Sound off as well if I can, then use Make It Rain and one-shot the Pokemon. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But because of Good as Gold, as I mentioned earlier, no status moves affect it. So Thunder Waves, Yawns, like I said. If you don't have Golden Go Steel Terra type, I would definitely make the investment to change Golden Go's Terra type to Steel because it can sweep so many raids. You can also include Kingambit in this if you wanted, like I have him, the Steel type. But in my opinion, there's no other Pokemon that's a better Steel type Pokemon in the game for raids than Golden Go. And last but not least, we have the Fairy type, and this is a tie between 2 Pokemon again, kind of like the Dark type was. I have Azumarill, Belly Drum, Play Rough, with the Shell Bell as the best physical attacker in the game when it comes to Fairy types. I use this Pokemon probably the second most behind Iron Hands, and then I'm going to give Sylveon the honorable mention slot, give it an ability patch to let it have Pixelate, and then give it Hyper Vice, Hyper Beam, Calm Mind, and Fake Tears. This is a very solid Pokemon. Especially when you need... It has a really high special defense, so it can take hits. And there's certain Dragon-type Pokemon you face that Sylveon is better used against than it would be with Azumarill. You can also maybe mention Tinkaton, but I don't think that she's nearly as good as Sylveon or Azumarill. So there we have it. That is all 18 types, in my opinion, of the best raid Pokemon in the game for each type. Please let me know what you think and what your favorite Pokemon are for each type. If you disagree with me, if you agree with me, if there are Pokemon I left off the list. I don't claim to know everything. This is just what I have gotten from trial and error. So if you like the video, please subscribe and stay tuned for more videos to come.